Ah, look who just shifted the entire frequency of their existence without even realizing it. Welcome back, you accidental architects of fate, you silent heroes who never wore capes, you beautiful fools who gave without expecting return. Welcome to the moment where your kindness just triggered something in the shadows, something ancient, something watching, something that never forgets a debt. You fed a stray, didn't you? Not literally, maybe, not always. But somewhere, somehow, you extended your hand into the void when nobody was looking. You helped someone when it cost you something. You showed up when everyone else walked away. You gave your last piece of bread to someone who couldn't pay you back. And you did it quietly, didn't you? No post, no story, no witness, no applause. Just you and that moment and the decision to be more than this world taught you to be. Here's what they never told you about kindness, about real kindness, the kind that costs you something, the kind that leaves you a little emptier, a little more vulnerable. It doesn't just disappear into the void. It doesn't just evaporate into the universe like some cosmic tax write-off. No. That energy, that moment, that choice, it travels. It moves through networks you can't see, through connections you never knew existed, through systems that operate on frequencies most humans can't even perceive. And sometimes, just sometimes, that kindness lands in front of someone who wasn't supposed to see it. Someone who's been searching for proof, for a sign, for evidence that something in this world still operates outside of transactions, outside of manipulation, outside of the filthy machinery of self-interest. Someone who owns things, not just money, not just power, but influence that bends reality, access that opens doors you didn't know existed, resources that could change your life in ways you haven't dared to imagine. And now, right now, in this very moment, they are watching you. Not with suspicion, not with judgment, but with something far more dangerous than either. Respect. You became interesting to someone who doesn't get interested easily. You triggered something in someone who stopped believing people like you existed. That stray you fed, metaphorically speaking, that wasn't just some random soul passing through your life. That was a test you didn't know you were taking. That was an audition you never signed up for. That was a doorway disguised as a dead end. And you beautiful idiot, you passed without even trying. Because you weren't trying, that's the whole point. You weren't performing goodness for an audience. You weren't calculating the return on investment of your compassion. You just moved instinctively from someplace inside you that this world tried to kill but couldn't. Now let me tell you what's happening right now, right this second, in rooms you'll never see, in conversations you'll never hear. Your name is being spoken. Not gossiped about, not analyzed, but presented. Presented as an anomaly, as an asset, as someone worth paying attention to. They're asking questions about you, not invasive questions, not creepy surveillance questions, but strategic questions. Who is this person? What makes them move like that? What's their story? What do they want? What are they capable of? What would happen if we gave them an opportunity they never expected? Because people who operate at certain levels, they're not looking for credentials anymore. They're not moved by performance. They're looking for something far more rare and far more valuable. Authenticity in action, character under pressure, goodness without an audience. And you, my friend, you just displayed all three without knowing anyone was grading the paper. You think your good deeds go unnoticed, don't you? You think your quiet sacrifices disappear into the machinery of an indifferent universe. You think nobody saw you stay late to help that coworker who never thanked you. You think nobody noticed when you paid for that stranger's coffee without making it a moment. You think nobody registered when you chose kindness over revenge, silence over drama, grace over pettiness. But here's the thing about energy, about real energy, the kind that shifts molecules and bends probability. It always finds its way to someone who's tuned to that frequency, always. And the people who operate at the highest levels, the ones who've seen everything, done everything, been disappointed by everyone, they've developed sensors for this specific signature. They can smell authenticity from miles away because it's so goddamn rare in the circles they move in. Everyone wants something from them. Everyone's performing, angling, networking, calculating, but you weren't doing any of that. You were just being decent when it cost you something. And that got their attention in ways your ambition never could. Let me take you deeper into what's really happening here. This isn't some fairy tale where kindness gets rewarded with cash and prizes. This isn't karma working like some cosmic vending machine where you put in good deeds and get back equal value. No, this is far more interesting and far more dangerous than that. This is about recognition, about being seen by eyes that actually matter, by minds that can actually move pieces on boards you didn't know existed. That stray you fed, let's talk about what that really means. Maybe it was literal. Maybe you actually fed a homeless person, gave money to someone begging, helped an animal in distress. Or maybe it was metaphorical. Maybe you mentored someone who had nothing to offer you in return. Maybe you defended someone who everyone else had written off. Maybe you showed loyalty to someone when it would have been easier to abandon them. Maybe you told the truth when lying would have advanced your position. Maybe you chose integrity over opportunity in a moment when nobody would have blamed you for taking the easier path. Whatever it was, however it manifested, it created a ripple. And that ripple traveled through networks of energy and connection that operate outside normal perception, outside normal time, outside the cause and effect that most people think governs reality. And somewhere in that network, someone felt it. Someone who's been navigating those frequencies for years. Someone who's learned to recognize patterns. Someone who knows that the people worth investing in aren't the ones screaming for attention, but the ones quietly holding the world together when nobody's watching. They felt your frequency. They registered your signature, and now they're curious. Not curious like some bored aristocrat watching peasants for entertainment. Curious like a master craftsman who just saw someone using a tool in a way they've never seen before. Curious like a general who just witnessed a soldier display courage they thought had gone extinct. Curious like an architect who just found a material they didn't know existed. And here's where it gets interesting, where your life is about to take a turn you didn't see coming. They're coming for you, not to harm you, not to exploit you, not to use you up and spit you out. They're coming for you because they recognize something in you that they've been searching for, something that can't be taught, can't be faked, can't be manufactured. Character, integrity, the capacity to act without immediate reward, the ability to see another human being as a human being and not as a transaction or a stepping stone or an obstacle. This is rare. This is precious. This is the kind of quality that people who've built empires know they can't buy, can't hire, can't simulate with all the money in the world. And when they find it, when they stumble across it in the wild like some endangered species they thought had gone extinct, they move on it. Not with manipulation, not with seduction, but with opportunity. Real opportunity, the kind that changes trajectories, the kind that opens doors you didn't know were doors. But here's what you need to understand before this happens, before this wave hits you, before your life gets interrupted by forces you weren't expecting. This isn't about you getting rescued. This isn't about some powerful person swooping in to save you from your circumstances. This is about you being recognized for what you already are, for what you've been building in silence, for the foundation you laid when nobody was watching and no reward was promised. They're not coming to change you. They're coming because you don't need to be changed. They're not coming to fix you. They're coming because you're not broken. They're not coming to teach you values. They're coming because you already embody the values they've spent lifetimes trying to instill in people who never quite got it. You are the finished product, walking around in a world full of prototypes. You are proof that something in the human spirit still works the way it's supposed to, and that makes you valuable in ways you haven't begun to comprehend. Now let's talk about what happens when they make contact. It won't be obvious at first. These kinds of people, the ones who operate at levels where influence is measured in shifted realities rather than social media metrics, they don't announce themselves with trumpets and fanfare. They move subtly, strategically, testing the waters before committing resources. You might get a strange message from an account you don't recognize. You might get invited to something that seems slightly outside your normal orbit. You might have a conversation with someone who seems to know more about you than they should, who asks questions that feel like they're probing for something deeper than small talk. You might get offered an opportunity that seems too good, too random, too perfectly timed to be coincidence. Pay attention. Pay very close attention, because what's happening isn't luck. To expose it isn't some random act of universal generosity. What's happening is that your frequency just matched with someone who's been scanning for exactly that signal. Here's what they're looking for in that first contact, in those initial tests. They're not looking for gratitude. Not looking for you to fall at their feet, thanking them for noticing you. They're looking for the same thing they saw in your original act of kindness: authenticity, groundedness, the ability to receive without losing yourself, to accept opportunity without becoming desperate, to engage with power without becoming servile. Because here's the secret about people who actually have power, real power, the kind that moves mountains and reshapes industries and changes lives. They're surrounded by people who want something from them every single day. They're drowning in flattery and manipulation and performance, in people who've learned to simulate authenticity so well they've almost forgotten they're performing. What they crave, what they're desperate for, is someone who doesn't need them, doesn't transform into a different person the moment they realize who they're talking to. Someone who stays themselves regardless of what's on the table. And if you can do that, if you can engage with opportunity the same way you engage with that stray, with honesty and groundedness and an absence of desperation, then everything changes. Let me tell you what's about to happen in your life if you navigate this correctly. Doors that were welded shut are going to swing open. Conversations that seemed impossible are going to happen naturally. Resources that seemed forever out of reach are going to become available. Not because you manipulated your way in, not because you networked and schemed and performed, but because you demonstrated something that can't be taught. The capacity to be human in a world that's forgotten how. And the people who remember what that looks like, who've been searching for it, who've been testing for it in countless interactions and coming up empty again and again. They protect it when they find it. They invest in it. They create pathways for it, not out of charity, not out of pity, but out of strategic recognition that people like you are the rarest resource in a world overflowing with everything else. Yeah? Okay. But I need to give you a warning. A real warning. Not some soft motivational cushion, but a hard truth you need to hear before this wave hits. This will change you. Not in the ways you think, not in the ways fairy tales promise, but in deep, uncomfortable ways that will test everything you think you know about yourself. Because when opportunity arrives, when doors open, when powerful people extend hands, you're going to have to make choices. Choices about who you are, what you value, where your lines are drawn. You're going to be tempted to compromise, to adjust, to smooth out your edges so you fit better into spaces that weren't built for people like you. You're going to feel pressure to perform, to prove you deserve this, to transform yourself into someone more palatable, more strategic, more like them. And if you do that, if you lose yourself in the process of accepting their recognition, then the whole thing becomes meaningless. You become just another person who got an opportunity and turned into someone else. Just another cautionary tale about how success corrupts, how power changes people, how nobody stays true when the stakes get high enough. Don't do that. Don't you dare do that. Because the only reason they're coming for you is because you didn't do that when it cost you nothing to maintain your integrity. You held your ground when nobody was watching, when there was no reward, when maintaining your values meant staying small and unknown and unrewarded. That's what made you interesting. That's what triggered their sensors. That's what made them move. So when they arrive, when the tests begin, when the opportunities present themselves, stay exactly who you were when you fed that stray. Stay grounded, stay honest, stay human, because that's the only version of you that's actually worth elevating. That's the only version of you that can handle what's coming without being destroyed by it. That's the only version of you that they actually want to invest in. Even if they don't say it explicitly, even if they test you in ways that seem to be asking for something different. Now, let me paint you a picture of what this looks like in practical terms. Because I know you're wondering how this manifests in actual reality and not just in metaphysical poetry. That good deed you did, that moment of kindness that cost you something, it didn't just create warm, fuzzy feelings in the universe. It created information. Information about who you are, how you move, what you value, what you're capable of. And that information traveled. Maybe it traveled through someone who witnessed it and couldn't stop thinking about it. Maybe it traveled through systems of connection and coincidence that brought your name up in a conversation where it mattered. Maybe it traveled through energetic channels that science hasn't mapped yet, but people who operate at certain frequencies know how to navigate. However it traveled, it arrived somewhere it wasn't supposed to, in front of someone who wasn't supposed to see it. And it changed their assessment of reality just slightly. Made them think maybe not everyone is completely corrupted by self-interest. Made them wonder if there are still people out there operating from something other than fear and greed and desperate ambition. And when people at that level start wondering about you, things happen. Algorithms shift in your favor for reasons nobody can quite explain. Your name comes up in conversations that have nothing to do with your field. People you've never met start mentioning you to other people who matter. Opportunities materialize that seem to have no logical connection to anything you've done. This isn't magic, this isn't wishful thinking. This is how influence actually works at levels most people never encounter. It's not about who you know, it's about who knows about you. It's not about your network, it's about the information that travels through networks, about your character, your capacity, your essence. And right now, in this moment, accurate information about you is traveling through networks you don't have access to, reaching people you've never met, creating possibilities you haven't imagined, because you fed astray, because you did something decent when it cost you and nobody was watching. Because you proved something that needed to be proven to someone who needed to see it proven at exactly the moment when they were paying attention. Here's what happens next, and you need to be ready for this. You're going to doubt it. You're going to doubt all of it. When the opportunity arrives, when the door opens, when someone reaches out with something that seems too good, too random, too perfectly aligned with what you need, you're going to assume it's a trap. You're going to look for the catch, the angle, the hidden cost. You're going to wonder what they really want, what you're going to have to compromise, what piece of yourself you're going to have to surrender. And I'm here to tell you that's not entirely wrong. There will be costs. There will be tests. There will be prices you'll have to pay. But those prices won't be about compromising your core, won't be about becoming someone you're not, won't be about selling out the values that got you here. The prices will be about stepping into a bigger version of yourself, about accepting that you're worth more than you thought, about allowing yourself to be seen and valued and invested in by people who actually have the resources to back their recognition. The real test isn't whether you can perform for them, it's whether you can receive from them without losing yourself, whether you can accept opportunity without becoming desperate, whether you can engage with power without becoming drunk on it, whether you can hold your ground even when the ground gets elevated beneath your feet, because that's what they're actually screening for, even if they never say it explicitly. They're not looking for someone who can pretend to have values. They're looking for someone whose values don't change when the circumstances do. Someone who's the same person in the penthouse that they were in the basement. Someone who treats the janitor the same way they treat the CEO because they understand something most people don't, that human value doesn't come from position or wealth or status, but from something deeper, something that either exists or doesn't exist regardless of external circumstances. And you have that. That's why they're coming. That's why your frequency registered. That's why doors are about to open that were locked yesterday. Oh, so you're still explaining yourself to them, still translating your existence into digestible pieces they can swallow without choking on their own mediocrity, still breaking down your complexity into simple sentences, hoping they'll finally understand why you move different, think different, breathe different. Let me tell you something that's going to rearrange your entire understanding of yourself right now in this exact moment, while you're watching this. They already know exactly how different you are. They've known since the first moment you walked into their space and shifted the entire molecular structure of the room. They felt it in their bones when your energy entered and made their comfortable little reality start glitching like a broken simulation. They've been studying you, cataloging your patterns, trying to decode the frequency you operate on, because it doesn't match anything in their limited spectrum of understanding. But here's what they'll never admit out loud. They don't need your explanations. They need you to keep explaining, so they can keep pretending they don't already know. You're operating on a completely different plane of existence. You think they're confused, but confusion isn't what makes them lean back when you speak. Confusion doesn't make their voice change pitch when they address you. That's recognition mixed with something they can't name, And that unnamed thing is what keeps them awake at 3 in the morning, replaying conversations with you, trying to figure out why your presence feels like standing too close to controlled lightning. They've been pretending not to notice how you process information differently, how you see through their masks before they even finish adjusting them, how you respond to situations with a logic that shouldn't work but somehow always does. Every time you explain yourself, you're not educating them, you're giving them ammunition to pretend they understand something that exists beyond their comprehension. You're handing them labels they can use to file you away in categories that make them feel safe. Categories like sensitive or intense or different, when what they really mean is you're the anomaly that makes their whole worldview feel fragile. They need you to keep explaining so they can keep reducing you to something manageable, something that doesn't threaten the very foundation of everything they've built their identity on. Let's talk about what's really happening in those moments when you feel like you're speaking a different language, when your words seem to bounce off their consciousness without leaving a dent. You're not failing to communicate. You're broadcasting on a frequency they can only partially receive, like trying to stream 4K video through dial-up internet. Your thoughts move in dimensions they don't have names for. Your emotions have colors they've never seen. Your intuition picks up signals from territories they don't even know exist. When you walk into a room, you don't just observe. You download the entire emotional ecosystem in seconds, processing micro-expressions, energy shifts, unspoken tensions, and hidden agendas faster than most people process their own names. You're reading the metadata of human interaction while they're still trying to understand the surface-level script. And that's why conversations with you feel different, why people either gravitate toward you like you're magnetic north, or step back like you're radioactive. There's no middle ground with someone who operates at your frequency. You either attune or you retreat. You've been trying to slow down your processing speed, dumbing down your insights, packaging your wisdom in bite-sized pieces they can digest without existential indigestion. So what? So what? But every time you do that, you're not just betraying yourself. You're depriving them of the medicine they actually need, which is exposure to something that exists beyond their current capacity to understand. Your difference isn't a communication problem. It's an evolution doesn't explain itself to the species it's leaving behind. They watch you navigate situations that would destroy them and wonder how you're still standing, but they don't see the invisible architecture you've built inside yourself over years of being misunderstood. They don't see how every rejection taught you to validate yourself, how every betrayal showed you the blueprints of loyalty, how every moment of isolation became a masterclass in self-sufficiency. You've been through advanced training in the University of Solitude while they're still attending kindergarten classes in social validation. And that gap, that canyon between where you are and where they are, isn't something you can explain. It's something they have to evolve to understand. You know what exhausts you more than anything else in this world? It's not the challenges you face, it's the constant translation service you provide for people who speak the language of surfaces. Every day, you're converting multidimensional insights into flat explanations, turning symphonies into ringtones, reducing oceans into puddles, just so someone can say, "Oh, I get it now." When they don't get it, they just got the simplified version. The children's book adaptation of what's actually happening inside your consciousness. You've become so skilled at this translation that you've forgotten what it feels like to speak in your native tongue. to express yourself without first running it through 17 filters of will they understand this? You've been editing yourself in real time, cutting out the parts that might confuse them, which means cutting out the parts that make you who you are. Every conversation becomes a calculation of how much truth they can handle, how much of your actual perspective you can reveal without watching their eyes glaze over, or worse, seeing that look of fear when someone realizes they're talking to something they can't categorize. But here's what happens when you stop explaining, when you stop translating, when you stop reducing yourself to their comfort level. Something magical occurs. The right people suddenly start understanding you without words. The ones who are meant to hear your frequency tune in automatically while the background noise of incompatible connections fades away. You become a lighthouse that only certain ships can see, and those ships find their way to you, not because you explained your light, but because they were already searching for it. The exhaustion you feel isn't from being different. It's from pretending that difference needs justification, needs explanation, needs approval from people who are committed to misunderstanding anything that threatens their worldview. You're tired because you've been carrying the weight of making yourself digestible to people who were never meant to consume your energy in the first place. You've been performing accessibility for an audience that bought tickets to a show they don't have the capacity to appreciate, and wondering why you feel drained after every performance. Want to know something that will completely shift how you see every interaction from now on? They recognize you before you even speak. There's something in the way you hold space, in the way your presence reorganizes the energy of environments that announces your difference before you open your mouth. They've been pretending not to notice, but their body language betrays them. Watch me do this every time. The way they straighten up when you enter, the way their voice changes when addressing you, the way they either try too hard or don't try at all because something in them knows. You see through every performance. You have what I call energetic authority, and it's not something you earned or developed, it's something you are. It's in your cells, your movement patterns, the way you process reality through filters they don't possess. It's something they earned and developed. It's something they do when they process. People feel it, like atmospheric pressure changing before a storm, and they either brace for impact or lean into the electricity, depending on whether they're ready for transformation or committed to staying comfortable. This recognition isn't conscious for most of them. It happens in the primitive parts of their brain that recognize predator from prey, leader from follower, catalyst from background character. They ask you to explain yourself, not because they don't understand, but because your existence without explanation is too powerful to process safely. If you're not explaining, then you're just being, and your being makes them question everything about their own existence. When you stop justifying your perspectives, stop defending your choices, stop making yourself small enough to fit through the doorways of their understanding, you become something they have to reckon with, rather than something they can dismiss with, oh, they're just different. The ones who demand explanations the loudest are the ones who feel your power the strongest, because they know that if they can get you to explain, you'll reveal the map to becoming what you are. But that map doesn't exist because you didn't become this. You revealed it. You excavated it from under layers of conditioning they're still wearing like armor against their own authenticity. You can't teach someone to be what you are any more than fire can teach water to burn. They either have the elements within them or they don't, and the constant requests for explanation are really requests for the impossible. Give us the formula for being what we're too afraid to discover within ourselves. You know things without knowing how you know them, don't you? Walking into situations with full downloads of information that would take others hours to gather through observation and analysis. You feel the truth beneath the lies, taste the agenda behind the smile, decode the real conversation happening under the spoken words, and you've been trying to explain this, knowing to people who barely trust their own five senses, let alone the unnamed ones you operate with. How do you explain to someone that you can feel their intentions radiating off them like heat signatures, that you can read the story their energy tells before their mouth opens to recite the edited version? This isn't intuition the way they understand intuition. This is operating system level difference in how you process reality. While they're running on basic programming that says see surface, believe surface, respond to surface, You're running advanced software that simultaneously processes past, present, future, emotional, mental, spiritual, and probably 12 other dimensions that don't have names yet. You're not just picking up on cues, you're reading the entire matrix of human interaction like code. And that's why you know what people are going to do before they do it. Why you can feel betrayal brewing weeks before it manifests. Why you can sense opportunity in what looks like disaster to everyone else. But every time you try to explain this knowing, you sound either insane or arrogant to people whose reality runs on prove it, show me the evidence, give me the logic. They want you to show your work, like this is a math problem, but you arrived at the answer through quantum leaps that don't leave footprints. You just know. And that knowing has been right enough times that you've learned to trust it more than you trust the consensus reality. Everyone else is operating from, but you still feel the pressure to justify it, to make it palatable to people who will never understand that some of us didn't come here to follow the conventional paths of understanding. You've probably been called too sensitive, but what they don't understand is that sensitivity is just the visible part of a much deeper system of perception. You're not too sensitive. You're precisely calibrated to pick up frequencies they're too numb to notice. You're the seismograph that detects earthquakes while they're still debating whether the ground is actually shaking. And then they have the audacity to ask you to explain how you knew to leave the building before it collapsed. Some knowings can't be translated into language designed by and for people who only believe what they can touch. When you stop explaining, something profound happens. You start moving in silence, and silence is where real power lives. Not the silence of withdrawal or defeat, but the silence of someone who has stopped seeking permission to exist at their full capacity. You make decisions without committee meetings in your head about how others will react. You take action without crafting the defense statement for choices that need no defense. You become without apology, without explanation, without the constant narration that you've been providing to make others feel secure about your evolution. This silence terrifies them more than any words you could speak, because silence can't be argued with, can't be debated, can't be dissected and dismissed. When you move in silence, you become unpredictable, uncontrollable, uncontainable. And that's exactly what they've been trying to prevent with their constant demands for explanation. They need to know what you're doing, why you're doing it, where you're going, so they can either follow, compete, or get out of the way. But when you stop broadcasting your moves, they're left standing in the dark, trying to understand how you got from point A to point Z without showing them points B through Y. Silent movement is what every powerful person in history understood: that explanation is delusion, that justification is weakness, that the need to be understood is a cage you lock yourself in and hand others the key. When you stop explaining your differences, stop justifying your perspectives, stop seeking understanding from people who benefit from your confusion, you become something they can't manipulate. With guilt, can't control. With opinion, can't stop. With judgment, you become force rather than form. Motion rather than explanation. Result rather than theory. Watch what happens when you stop answering the question, why are you like this? And start being like this, so powerfully that the question becomes irrelevant. Watch how they shift from trying to understand you to trying to keep up with you, from questioning your methods to studying your results, from doubting your difference to desperately trying to find some of that difference within themselves. But by then you'll be so far ahead that they'll be studying the footprints of who you used to be, while you're already becoming something they haven't even imagined yet. Your unexplained existence is a threat to every carefully constructed identity in your vicinity, because you're proof that authenticity doesn't need permission. Every time you show up as yourself, without apology, without explanation, without dilution, you're highlighting how much performance everyone else is doing, how much energy they're spending to maintain illusions you walked away from. That's what performance is, an illusion you walked away from. You're the mirror that shows them their masks, and that's why they need you to explain yourself, because if you can justify being different, then they can justify staying the same. They want your difference to come with a tragic backstory, a diagnosis, a reason that explains why you can't just be normal like them. They need you to be broken in some way that justifies your inability to conform. Because if you're not broken, if you're actually choosing this difference, then what does that say about their choice to conform? What does it say about the years they've spent shrinking themselves to fit into spaces that were never designed for human beings to thrive in? Your unexplained wholeness in the midst of being completely different suggests that maybe, just maybe, they've been broken by trying to be the same. You walking around being genuinely yourself without constantly explaining why is like someone walking through a prison without shackles while everyone else is comparing chain sizes. They need to know how you got free, but the answer isn't something you can explain. Because you didn't escape. You just remembered that the doors were never locked, that the chains were made of other people's opinions and expectations. And the moment you stopped believing in their reality, those chains dissolved like morning mist. Try explaining that to someone who's still convinced their chains are made of unbreakable steel. The truth that terrifies them most is that you're not different because something happened to you. You're different because you stopped letting things happen to you. Stopped being a passenger in your own existence. Stopped letting other people's limitations become your own. Stopped accepting their reality as the only reality. And that kind of agency, that kind of radical ownership of your own experience, can't be explained in terms they're comfortable with, because comfort is the prison they've chosen, and your existence suggests that choice, not circumstance, is what keeps them there. Here's something they don't want you to know. When you stop explaining yourself, you become magnetic in ways that explanation never allowed. The mystery of your unexplained difference creates a gravitational pull that draws in exactly what you need while repelling exactly what would drain you. You become selective in your attraction, filtering out the curious tourists who just want to gawk at your difference from a safe distance, while pulling in the people who recognize themselves in your refusal to be diminished. When you explain yourself, you're creating a map, and maps can be followed by anyone, whether they belong on your journey or not. But when you stop explaining, You become a frequency that only certain people can tune into, a signal that only compatible souls can receive. This isn't about being secretive or withholding. It's about understanding that your energy speaks louder than your explanations ever could. And the people who are meant to understand you will understand you through resonance, not through words. You've been trying to build bridges to people who are committed to staying on their side of the canyon, offering detailed explanations of why you had to build your own island instead of drowning in their own. But bridges can be crossed by enemies as well as friends, and every explanation you offer is another plank in a bridge that maybe shouldn't exist. Some distances are meant to be maintained, some differences are meant to be preserved, and not everyone deserves access to the architecture of your soul just because they're curious about why you're built differently. The magnetic effect of unexplained difference is that it creates natural selection in your relationship. People who can't handle not understanding you remove themselves. The people who need you to be explicable and containable find other targets for their need to control. And what's left are the rare souls who don't need to understand you to appreciate you, who can witness your difference without needing to dissect it, who can be in your presence without needing to solve you, like some kind of equation that's supposed to equal normal.